We have new exclusive reporting as far as Movement for a People's Party. Obviously, we have done original reporting over the last few weeks, not really about whether Nick allegations against Nick Brana. We haven't really got into specific allegations. As journalists, I think you would agree. If a woman hasn't publicly come forward, I don't really think it's for us to divulge.
It's not. Exactly. She can do that in due course if she chooses to. I don't think that needs to be a focus of what we're looking at.
Right. But outside of the allegations, because as I've said, I'm not reporting that he's guilty of sexual harassment or innocent. I was reporting on a fairly, let's just say, some smoke when it comes to the process that MPP board members were removed. And then I've been digging into Nick and MPP put out a pretty extensive statement about a quote unquote coup to remove him, and that the allegations against him were actually part of a coup. We have video messages and other things that seem to contradict that. So Tina, I got a lot. We got a lot here, but let's start in Nick's own words. Sabi Sabs, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sabi Sabs is a YouTube host. For her, she was able to get him to answer some questions. For me, his answer to questions was changing the topic. But Nick, on her show, she asked specifically, do you have evidence for your claim that these allegations were really part of a coup attempt to remove you?
So I guess I have to ask, why hasn't that evidence been released? Because this story has been out for a couple of days and it's kind of taken on its own form here. If there's that evidence, why wasn't that evidence released to the public?
It actually was. There's an interview that Jordan Sheridan posted. Jackson Hinkle. It was Jackson Hinkle's interview where one of the special committee members, Elise Meisel's, joined and shared and attested to this. It's also on video that they were discussing that they believed that this is a coup, members of the special committee, which was in fact, it led to a political reprisal on the special committee because they had arrived at the wrong conclusion. The investigation was supposed to be predetermined in the eyes of these board members who had originally fabricated the allegations against me and kind of shepherded and even escalated them when the committee wasn't arriving at the conclusion that they sought. And so it actually has. If you haven't had the opportunity to see Jackson's interview, I would definitely do that. And there's video evidence.
So there's video evidence of this happening. And the reason why I ask about evidence is because just because people say that something was said, is there any type of recording that shows that this was plotted?
There is. It is, in fact, that recording that led the other board members to attempt to remove them from the committee, from the investigation.
So when I spoke to a member from the board, one of the board members that was removed, they explained to me that this investigation was still going on. You're saying the investigation ended already?
Correct. It had concluded. The findings had been presented, that there was no fault, there was no merit to the allegations, and in fact, that it was politically motivated. And that was the perspective that needed to be stamped out and suppressed when it was arrived at by these board members who had a different conclusion in mind.
So Jackson Hinkle did an interview, and the recording is on his interview?
The recording's not on his interview, but Elise Meisel's, who was one of the special committee members, attests to it in that interview. And we can find that recording.
So there's a lot there, Tina. First of all, you and I were talking about this. Journalistically, typically if somebody's accused of something and they have video evidence, what has been your experience?
If they're innocent, they release it immediately and it's done with.
If they're innocent, they release it immediately and it's done with. So he said a few things there. And by the way, we have obtained the video that he said he could find. He didn't give it to us. He also didn't give it to Sabi Sobs. So this was obtained another way. We have obtained audio of David, Mizell, and Elise. And for those non-MPPers, these are two members. They're two MPP board members, and they were two of the members of the Special Investigative Committee. Again, originally there was three members of the investigation committee, and then a fourth was added. So we obtained audio from a recording, and this was in December, on December 22nd of 2021, where David and Elise were talking before Nick was coming on to the Zoom meeting. And Nick was coming on to have his formal interview as part of the investigation. This audio, I believe, is what he's citing as the video recording or the video evidence that these two special committee members believe there was a coup.
Yeah.
And then we can just kind of go over what you had today.
Yes.
Because I read your report.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Wow.
Go ahead.
Do you have any indication that that what was discussed in your clarification statement, that there was a predetermined process?
No, that's what I'm trying to find out right now. I put in a call to Michelle.
Right.
I basically asked her, I said, if the vote were held today, would you be voting to remove Nick? And she responded back, well, this, that, and the other, and I'd have to think about that and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, good. We need to talk. And so I'm supposed to talk to her after this call, but quite honestly, I'm thinking that we need to talk to Branson, the three of us, because to me, this brings this to a whole different level. I don't know what you're thinking.
I'm leaning towards what you're saying. I am. The reason why I'm not jumping into it, hook, line, and sinker, just on face value, is because I do have a pretty good rapport with Thomas, and I don't see Thomas as a individual who's looking to go and take over the party.
Yeah.
In that sense, that just and it just doesn't match with his personality. It doesn't match with his work. It doesn't match with his political ambitions. So,
right.
For me, that would seem improbable that Thomas would be.
Tina.
I'm hearing the opposite.
Yeah. So Tina, interestingly enough,
no coup. It's improbable there's a coup, is what I'm hearing. So
the first person, Elise Mizell, who Nick said had attested to there was a coup, even though she didn't. I watched the interview with Jackson Hinkle. She doesn't mention a coup. She doesn't mention a video recording that backs it up. So the question is, where did the coup claim come from in the beginning? Because she didn't just, this board member didn't come up with it out of thin air. Somebody told it to her. And we'll get to that later. Who originated the coup claim?
Yeah.
We also have one of those people in writing.
Yeah.
A month later, not only saying there's no evidence, but also, remember, Nick has said there was no merit to the allegations against him. And that's what the Special Investigative Committee found. Colin, if we could show this internal Slack message from MPP. This is from David Mizell, who's one of the people on that message, on that audio. So at the bottom of that, he says, the recommendations were taken under serious consideration and in no way gave Nick a free pass. To the contrary, John softened the clause of one-on-one supervision. Though the individual who claimed to me there was a coup, quote, coup, was not Nick, I cannot be certain that his opinion did not come from Nick himself. I cannot be certain that this opinion did not come from Nick himself. Honestly, I took it with a grain of salt and did not see the relevance to the investigation at hand. Does that sound like somebody who believes there was a coup?
Yeah, I don't. No, my personal belief after looking at all this stuff is that no, there wasn't a coup. That this is just some sort of deflection. It's strange to me that, given all the machinations that we've seen involving the board of directors, and these are very serious things. When you're running a 501c3 or a 501c4, either one of these entities, there's a lot of accountability that comes into play, not only to your members, but to the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. It's very serious. You have fiduciary responsibilities as a board member. So it's very detrimental to have all of these things going on. And the lack of accountability, or I'm going to get rid of anybody that wants to make me accountable, is a very damaging optic, in my opinion.
So that was David Mizell in late January, his message. So there was also an issue that I was told by sources about Nick basically approaching people who were about to be interviewed by investigators before they were interviewed.
Right.
Which, I'm not a lawyer, but I do think that's a no-no for the subject of an investigation to be reaching out to people who are about to be interviewed as part of the investigation. I was also told that he was reaching out throughout the process to people on the investigative committee, trying to influence them. So the first clip we have here is part of an interview that was done with Phil Atato. And Phil Atato was an MPP board member. He's not an MPP board member anymore. And he was interviewed by the special committee because he was friends with Nick, and he was present with Nick at certain functions where the accuser was present. We're not playing the whole interview, but there are a couple parts that are interesting. Let's play the first one.
At any point, did Nick or Rod approach you about us coming to talk to you?
Nick did earlier this week. I'll be 100% transparent. Yeah.
Oh,
so he reached out as a friend. So, more on a friend capacity than a professional MPP capacity.
Okay.
So he just he basically asked me the same thing y'all are. Did you feel like anything weird happened this night? And I told him exactly what I told you.
By the way, I reached out to Phil Atato. This is the second time I've reached out to him. No response. You see a pattern of no response from all these people. But he said that, Nick reached out to him earlier in the week before he was to be interviewed with the invest. So one has to wonder, how does Nick know who's being interviewed next as part of the investigation? Nick's not supposed to know updates of the investigation. That would be like Trump being given updates of who Mueller is interviewing next.
Exactly. It's completely inappropriate.
So, Phil isn't the only person. Here is a Slack message. If we could put that up, Colin. Again, there was suspicion among people on the Special Investigative Committee that Nick was reaching out to people. So Todd, who was on later became a member of the Special Investigative Committee, he says, that's a major problem if Nick is spreading rumors to acquit himself. It opens up a completely new can of worms of liability for us here.
Yeah,
Todd,
it certainly does.
Todd asks, has any member of the special committee had any conversations alone with Nick from the period when we received the accuser redacted her complaint until now? Elise, again, one of the people that Nick claims backs up his coup claim, even though we just showed she did not do that.
Right.
She says, yes, I did, and disclosed from the onset. He called me because I was the one who sent the original notice. During the call, I did not reveal any part of the accuser's complaint. So remember earlier, we got that message from David saying, and I can't say for certain if the coup claim did not originate from Nick himself. Because the coup claim came from somewhere first, right?
Right.
So David, who Nick said backs him up on the coup claim, but actually said there's no tangible evidence for the coup claim. Here's Regina Clark in a Slack message. She introduces that a little birdie told her a coup story. Then we learn it's birdie Brana. Brana is the birdie. So Regina says, the birdie for me is Nick. I personally ended that part of it. This came up as they hijacked the end of my finance project management conversation. He's reaching out to people right before they're going to be interviewed by the investigators. He's reaching out to members of the Special Investigative Committee. And according to Regina, he's hijacking an unrelated meeting on finance to push this coup stuff. It doesn't seem like he was allowing the investigation to naturally go on. Let's play this second clip, and this is another clip from Phil Atato, who is a former board member, and this is the person who was asked, did Nick or Rod Brana reach out to you before your interview? And he said, yes, Nick did. Let's play this clip.
I felt bad about the way I resigned and that I didn't write a nice formal resignation letter. But as I expressed to Nick when we talked earlier this week, it was just a combination of, the stressful last year, the year before that we had, and there so much had happened in the time I was out this past summer that I felt like it was like so much I had to catch up on between, Slack and, official processes, things like that. And I felt like the die had been cast as far as, where the organization was going to go. The process was put in place for the NOC. I don't have any specific bylaws experience or expertise to add.
And I quote, I feel bad about the way I resigned and that I didn't write a nice formal resignation letter.
Right.
That guy's saying, I feel bad I resigned. He's not a board member. He's saying I resigned. Colin.
He's no longer a board member. Yeah. And yet here he is.
Well, let's put up the document. Yeah. So here we go. This is February 19th. Phil Atato signing this document calling for the removal from the board of Todd Jellin, Thomas Royko, and Regina Clark. Colin, keep this up. I want to talk about timing and the timeline here because it's very important. On February 19th, this day that all these people signed this document, on February 19th, Todd Jellin, Thomas Royko, Regina Clark, who are the board members on that document being removed, and two other board members, they signed their names calling for an emergency meeting the next day to discuss the investigation and recommendations. February 4th, what we just showed you, he says, I've resigned from the board. Yet February 19th, he's a board member voting out other board members. If all of this isn't enough, it came to my attention yesterday, Tina, that the People's Party, they have a general counsel already, but I guess that they had hired outside, what they call an outside lawyer. This outside lawyer, who happens to be a longtime MPP volunteer, emails the accuser this. Subject line, please contact me at your earliest convenience. February 22nd, so the same day, right after I broke the story. Again, the story said she might be coming public. Dear, we've obviously redacted the accuser's information. Please be advised that I have been retained by the People's Party board to represent the organization concerning the recent controversies which have arisen with the board and Mr. Nick Brana. In light of the circumstances, I need to hear from you this evening to avoid damage to my client and potentially ensuing litigation.
I think he's obviously trying to intimidate her.
Well, yeah.
That's how, as a woman, that's how it comes across to me.
Well, let's talk about the technical aspect first.
Sure.
He said, I've been retained by MPP's board. And he tells the accuser, in order to avoid damage to my client.
Right.
Well,
to my client, not to the board, not to the organization, but to my client, which.
Okay, but the story that came out earlier was about Nick Brana.
Right.
As far as I know, the accuser did not accuse the board
of anything,
of 9 other people of sexual harassment. She accused Nick Brana. So if this lawyer is representing the board, and he told me yesterday, I'm not actually representing Nick or Rod Brana, I'm representing the board. If he's representing the board, why are you reaching out to the accuser who she didn't accuse the board of sexual harassment or anything else?
It doesn't make sense.
She accused the chairman of the board 3 days after this outside lawyer who was doing a comprehensive review. I don't know if he was doing the review then. He ended up doing the review. 3 days after that, he emailed the accuser basically saying, hey, here's your clock. If you don't get back to me tonight, you might face legal action. So he says that's not a threat. That's just trying to, find a possible resolution to a dispute. He
But it's
shares.
not. I mean, it's like she is entitled. If something went wrong, she's entitled to redress, and he's not even entertaining that notion with that. It's just remarkable that he would say that.
He told me, and this was one of my favorite quotes from him because he seems to be a colorful fellow. Yes, I can attempt resolution of a dispute and examine the People's Party internal process at the same time. Similarly, I could rub my tummy and pat my head at the same time. So that's clearly a serious lawyer.
Very serious guy. Yeah. Wow.
Nick Brana told Sabi Sabs very specifically that there is video evidence. There is a video recording that backs up that the special committee believed that this was a coup attempt. The only problem is he hasn't provided that video evidence. The audio we have clearly shows the two people that he was pointing out, David Mizell.
We're saying that I don't see a coup. Yeah.
I read the recommendations.
Right.
I read all of them. Not only were there recommendations for punishment for Nick, sexual harassment training, workplace training, management training, the loss of one-on-one supervision, the loss of he could not go to staff meetings. He could not go to regional coordinators meetings. There were recommendations for the accuser as well. There were no recommendations for punishment of the accuser. In contrast, the recommendation was that the board would offer to pay for her any therapy she needed.
Yeah.
And that the board would offer her an employment contract.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If if a woman was making up false allegations and was part of a coup to remove you, why would the special committee be making recommendations? We've already went through the punishments for Nick,
which are all fairly reasonable. They're reasonable. What the other part, Jordan, that I don't understand is why wouldn't he just look at this and say, okay, this happened, life lesson. I'm going to go with these recommendations and moved on. Like he just keeps digging the hole deeper, and I just can't fathom why that is.
To me, this is about bottom line. He claims there's a coup. He claims that these members found that this was a coup. He claims that these members were in collusion with the accuser for this coup. We have showed you today, the very people he's claiming said, we believe there's a coup, did not say that. One of them said, there's no evidence of it.
Mm-hmm.
He also said, Nick did not get a free pass, meaning Nick said there's no merit to these allegations. It was found to be politically motivated. Then why would there be recommendations for severe punishment against him?
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
And by the way, in my experience, if you're innocent of things, you don't have your lawyer reach out to the accuser on the same day that the story breaks.
And intimidate her. Yeah.
Saying, if you don't get back to me in a few hours, we might sue you. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.